late. He's going to try and call in on Zoom when he gets out of his deposition, when he got in his car. So kind of watch for him, but he said to go ahead and start because he thought he'd be just a little bit late.
I'll call the meeting to order. Bam, bam, bam. Do we need to take roll?
They've already taken it, I'm sure. I mean, it's not, it's not a regular meeting
Okay.
agenda or anything like that. So we're going to start with Tom Borrego's going to do an update, a culinary update for us. Okay. So make sure your microphone's on.
Yes. So if you can put up my little PowerPoint, you guys can follow along here. I want to provide the board kind of an update on culinary and where things are at. And then a little bit about an opportunity we have with hospitality that's beginning to present itself for some preliminary conversation and discussion. If you can hit the next slide. Great. So just to get everybody up to speed, most of you know that the Redler Institute of Culinary Arts is up and running. And the value of that building and the land is about 5.5 million, with the construction costs around $4.3 million. The next slide, please. Again, just another bit of information. Construction began on that building on December 2nd of 2021 and concluded on July 25th of 2022. And classes began on August 22nd of 2022. So kind of a fast turnaround, but we've got that up and running, and enrollment sounds like it's pretty steady compared to the previous years. That's good. Next slide. So this slide is just kind of showing you some dollar amounts. They don't add up, but as far as the total here, but I want to show you kind of the impact of the dollars on the project. We had about $3.3 million in charitable giving that went into the total cost of this project. Financing for this project is around 2.3, and that's includes the Redler loan and then a bridge loan that was used to help finish off some of the vendors that had to get paid towards the end of the project, which is being paid off by cash, and we'll have that reduced here very shortly. Total expenses for the project, about 4.3. This includes the equipment that we had to purchase that wasn't donated, and typically that was at cost or close to that. And the total value of the project is around 5.5. I want to make note too that that 3.3 million on the gifts, we have still some fundraising to do. So that includes an anticipated tax credits being sold and spark funding being reimbursed to us for that for this project. One little note, 82% of our donors to this project were outside of Butler County. It kind of gives you a flavor about who supported this project when we were soliciting. Next slide.
And from all over the nation. Great.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
really, when it came down to it, when you looked at donated equipment and funding support and dollar support, it was from all over.
Yeah, we were very fortunate on this project because of Scott Redler's involvement, his relationship with vendors. We were able to get a number of things at cost or just a flat out gift. So we saved quite a bit on FF&E when we were getting those kitchens supplied. So it was a excellent opportunity. Remaining fundraising, which I talked a little bit about, 60/40 tax credits. These are community college tax credits that we received that assist us in fundraising. Donor gets 60% returned back in state tax credit. So only 40% of their gift is really what is out as far as the total gift. So we've got 383,000 right now tax credits to complete, and those need to be finished up by the end of the year. 70/30 tax credits are community tax credits that we applied for. Those are tax credits that they're interesting. You can get them if you have a liability, you can apply your 70% to your tax liability. But if you don't have tax liability, you get that back as a refund. So it's kind of a win-win thing. But those don't have to be exhausted until the end of December 2023. So we have a little bit more time on those. But with both tax credits, we have donors identified to solicit to bring those down to zero. So this would be money into the project. The Spark funds, you may recall, the college did receive Spark funding, and this project was part of that request when we were seeking support. And so we have $567,768 that are eligible for the Spark funding. So we have costs that were associated with the project that can be applied to this funding. So this is something we would be get back from some of the costs that we've already expended. Next slide. So if you recall on the lease document that we had, there is a clause in that document that allows the college to purchase the culinary building if they should choose to do so. And that is something I want to talk about a little bit here today. The next slide. This slide is just basically what is in the document itself. But it basically says the college has the option to purchase the building, and then there is an exhibit that's attached to that. There's a lease that runs with this as well, that goes out 20 years, but the college can anytime during that 20 years purchase the building. So there's anything else you need to know?
That comes right out of the original lease document that
Yep.
was in the board book.
Yep.
Was it last fall?
Last fall, right? So the next page shows you what that lease looks like as far as the term. The initial term is for 10 years. And the second term is for additional 5 years, which can be renewed. The first term, the new renewal term is 5 years. The second renewal term is another 5 years. So the end of that lease ends in the year 2042 if the college does not exercise any purchase option or option to purchase during that time frame. Next slide. So the cost of that lease is $28,692.42 per year. And then you take that out over 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. There is a interest, and really what this is paying the interest on the loan that the Redlers have given us. And so that 28,692 is the amount that was budgeted for the Boston Rec Center when you were leasing that building from them. So we didn't want to raise the budget for any increased lease amount. We just kept it the same. Right now, the cost of the interest on the loan on 1.5, I think, is 32,000 roughly. And we think that the loan's gonna be a little bit less than that, but it'll be in that neighborhood. So whatever is accrued over that time, in addition to 28,000 per year, that would be tacked on to the cost of the building if it's ever purchased by the college. But we're in the same ballpark as far as the lease amount's concerned. But that is what the cost of leasing it for 20 years. I want you to see that looks like 15 years for 10 years, and of course per year. So the next slide is.
So I'm sorry, is there no escalation clause in the lease that have it increase at the 10-year and 15-year marks?
No.
Okay.
No. It's a pretty generous.
That's very generous.
Yeah. And so that just a reminder, the purpose of this is to help the college achieve a goal. It's not really for the foundation to make money. We just want to be whole as much as we can, but our goal is to try to get a building to the college for use for its program. So here is the balance of the loan projected after we pay off Commerce and we raise all of our dollars. And so that number could change. We're still kind of settling on some expenses. They're not outrageous expenses. But the thing to remember too is that we have outstanding pledges that will be coming in over the period of 10 years. So that will impact that number considerably.
And decrease it.
And decrease that as far as a net out for the college as to what it expended on the project. So right now we're looking at roughly about north of $700,000 in pledges that will come in over time. which will put the purchase price net just around a little under $600,000. So the total cost of the building, a little over $5 million. The net that the college will be looking at after pledge receivables are paid out would be a little under $600,000.
So how would that work if the board decided at some point in time, in the near future to purchase and pay this amount,
Mhm.
then as those pledges would come in over the next 10 years, then how does that money come back to the college? Does it just get reimbursed it gets reimbursed to the college then to,
Right.
Right.
So the foundation would commit the outstanding pledges to the college. And so as the pledges come in every year, we would then
Just
send those
transfer them.
pledges over to the college, and the college would have that, and then we would pay out all those pledges to the college for the buyout on the loan. So the cost of the college is compared to the cost of the building is a pretty good one, we think. But I wanted to present this information to you so you knew kind of where those numbers were going to fall. We'll get more specific numbers as we close out our costs of the project. We've got a few things left. We have a sign that we're going to add some stuff to, and then maybe another sign on the north side of the building so you can see it off of Kellogg. So we're going to get the cost on that, but that's pretty much it. I think everything else will be taken care of by then, and so this number's not too far off.
Over time. Do the donors still get 60, 40, 70, 30?
Yep.
Tax credit
So when they
or
the ones that are part of that tax credit, not all of the donors
no,
that have
one
contributed
that
at this point, but
participated
the
in
ones
the-
that are participating,
okay, they expire
but
this
they,
Christmas and next Christmas.
I don't understand exactly how that works. The 60-40 tax credits, they can only use in one tax year. Is that
right. So 60/40s have to be used in 2022. So those are a little tougher because the donor has to figure out what his or her state tax liability is for the year, so they don't pay more or give more than they need to. So we gotta have to work with donors and kind of understand their situation. Whereas the 70/30s, you can give twice as much as what you owe the state of Kansas, but you get that back as a refund from the state of Kansas. So it's not as challenging to give out.
Because I know one of the donors, when he approached me, was talking about that.
Yeah, this is a great incentive for people that may not be really interested in the project or maybe somewhat interested in the project. This kind of takes them over to really get involved because of the gift that they can make as far as the net goes, but the impact is pretty great. And this is the state of Kansas basically saying, hey, we'll help you with your project.
So part of these tax credits, and is it the 70-30 ones, the ones that now I'll get them mixed up,
Yeah.
but there was $5 million that was left over in state funds. And the technical colleges got some additional funding for some projects. And so this pot of money was made available to the community colleges. Or actually, maybe it was money that the universities got, but this pot of money was made available to the community colleges to use for tax credits. So it was kind of an add-on or a unique opportunity for us and worked out well.
Yeah,
Projects that we
we've got
have.
really lucky. The timing was
Yeah, perfect.
about as perfect as you can get on the 60/40s. 70/30s are given out every year. The state of Kansas budget's about a little less than $500,000. Maybe more than that. It's more than that. But they budget that. And it's interesting because there is the 70/30s, which are strictly for rural communities. And then there's 50/50s that are for urban areas. So every year nonprofits will apply for these tax credits. And then the state of Kansas will award those to X number of nonprofits. We can't get them again next year. We have to wait a year, but those are very competitive tax credits that are available to communities. Great boon for the rural areas.
Mhm.
So there's that. Yes,
On
sir.
your signage that you're gonna put up, can we please put up something that says Butler County Community College?
That's exactly,
I have so many people say, what's Redler?
yeah.
It's like, well, when the other sign is beneath it is lit up, but
Yeah,
We got
that's
some
a,
amazing real estate that needs our name
That's
on it.
what's going on.
yeah, the digital sign off of Kellogg, and it's not big enough to catch Butler. And there's trees coming as you're coming from the west to the east. You can't see them. We're eradicating that. But the sign has to be on, we have space for it on that building, and it will just be just Butler Community College. That's all it'll say.
Okay.
So it'll identify the building as a Butler building. Yeah. Yeah, it's the things you kind of go, ooh, I wish I'd have thought, oh, actually, we talked about it. I don't know where that one
It-
slipped through the cracks, but
I got lost in the shuffle.
yeah. So that's the update on the loan or the culinary project. Now I want to touch base a little bit on the hospitality, which is brand new to you guys. So if you've been to the property, you know that there is property to the east of the building that's available or that's open. And there's three lots there. There's the immediate lot east of us, and then the lot east of that has been purchased by I think we can say who it is.
I don't,
I haven't heard
well,
anybody.
it's up there. It's public now.
Oh, there you go. Okay, Walnut River Brewery. I didn't. forget about that. The Walnut River Building,
I think it's.
a building there, and then there's a property to the east of that that's still a vacant lot. But as we were talking about the culinary project and just trying to figure out how all these things might work, when Walnut River came into the picture, the idea of purchasing the property between culinary and the Walnut River brewery property became more of a desire and thinking about maybe we should capture this land while we can get it. And then perhaps think about what that might mean for hospitality in the future. So there is some advantages to doing that. Walnut River has been really excited about what we might be able to do with Butler in bringing what they do and our curriculum and making the culinary hospitality programs in general more robust. But it'll be a one of a kind of setup for us and would really make us competitive in this market to promote that program and industry needs. So if you go to the next slide, the value of the land is about 213,750, and I want to make sure that that's a solid number, but that's the number we were looking at. And there's a desire to there's a kind of an incentive. Scott Redler has said if the college finally decides to go ahead and pay off this loan, he would use his funds to purchase that land, make a gift to purchase that land, give the gift to the foundation. The foundation would purchase that land and hold it so that the college would have time to think about what the future might look like in that space and do that. As we began to have those initial conversations with people who might be interested in doing something, we had a great conversation with a donor that said, I'm really interested in $1 million gift to get that thing built. That was a preliminary conversation. We're in discussion, but we've told them we're not at that point yet, but this is the excitement that's kind of being generated a little bit. So there is some interested parties in seeing these programs flourish, and they want to do it with Butler. So I wanted to present that conversation with you all so that you knew that sort of what was happening, that there's an opportunity here, I think, to get the building into the college's assets and to at a very, very, very reasonable price. And then you have another opportunity here to help the hospitality program kind of create a vision for it and get it going. So we're pretty lucky to have those things present themselves. But I want to make this board aware that that was happening. Lots going on.
So what's enrollment right now for culinary?
90 is what I heard, but Tom Neville could probably tell us for sure.
I believe our culinary enrollment.
And so it's at 90.
Numbers.
Okay.
And then what's our hospitality?
So hospital, go ahead.
I was just gonna say hospitality, is the industry that really took an additional hit. So what we've seen lots of times is a combination of culinary and hospitality or hotel management students together. So if you look at just pure hospitality numbers, not real big, but it's COVID related as well. So there's opportunity. What we saw in the past, lots of times before COVID, was that students would do one program or the other and then come back, do the second associate's degree. There's certainly discussion that industry in the near future is really going to start to rebound. They're trying to hire, hospitality is trying to hire people now to get back into it, but they're having to hire trained, unqualified folks. So they really want programs to get ramped back up again. So it would again start out as a smaller number, but there's certainly industry support and industry people that feel like it's going to ramp up fairly quickly when they get going. So
Yeah,
not right now,
right.
not right now.
There's a unique opportunity. Scott Redler is the president of the National Restaurant and Hospitality Association. And so he's got his finger on the pulse of what's happening and what could be happening. Adam Mills is the president and CEO of the Kansas Hospitality and Restaurant Association. I was just visiting with him about this, and he said Butler's poised to really kind of capture the market when it begins to really grow, but the need right now is trained workers. We don't have that. If I could hire a trained person versus a non-trained, I'd hire a trained every day, all day long. And that's kind of the issue that, in fact, they're meeting in October for their annual meeting about what is available to us, because not only
They can't hire either right now because nobody wants to do it,
right,
trained or untrained.
right. So you've got, they're thinking about how can we create incentives? How can we get people interested in going into hospitality? Because the competition has shifted since COVID. I mean, where people can get jobs. Amazon's a great example of that. But we know that industry is going to rebound. And what position do we put Butler in to be able to support that industry once it begins to? You can't wait too long. You have to kind of prepare.
The thing is, Tom and I talked about this, that the land piece that's in between Walnut River and where we are, because of its location, right there at Marketplace and across from the Heritage. Even if the college eventually didn't really decided that it didn't make sense to build on that land, it's certainly resellable, and obviously you guys can think about it. We, again, wanted to just put this out here for thought and kind of conversation at this point in time, but is that the kind of investment that would make sense at this point in time, so that that piece of land is available if we would decide? If not, you can turn, or foundation, whoever has it can turn around and
Yeah.
sell it
But
pretty easily.
But if the
What you
foundation
mentioned
buys it,
Redler would buy it, he would hold on to it.
that's
No,
right.
he would give it the money to
He
the
would give it to the
foundation. The foundation would
He would give
purchase.
the lease, the deed of the land to the foundation.
No, he would give us the money to purchase the land.
So what's
And-
that price per foot? And does it have special assessments? And if so,
I don't think there's special assessments,
I
but
would
let me
think
look
that's
at,
old enough, they'd be paid off by now, but that.
That corner's been there for
It's been
Yeah.
what, 20 or 30 years?
Oh, it hasn't been 30, but probably every bit of 15. I think Marketplace was
build
built
those
right before the
markets?
crash. The Marketplace was built like around 2007, 2008, around, or right before the market just
Okay.
tanked, which is why it took so long for that whole area to get going
Okay.
again.
$10 a square foot seems to come into my mind on that deal.
Okay.
So would it be culinary, vacant, Walnut Brewing,
At this point-
hospitality?
No,
No proposed
no,
no.
it's
culinary?
culinary. Then the lot that's next to us is vacant, but that might be hospitality at some point in time. Then
Then
Walnut River, and then the lot on the very far east end is not available for sale. It's vacant, but it's evidently not available. I don't know whether they've committed it to somebody else or what, but
Yeah, I
it's the
don't,
one that's right on the corner
Mhm.
where on Yorktown, right there on Yorktown.
Okay.
mhm.
Did you find those numbers?
I have. He's talking about the
Okay.
headcount, I'm just,
And
I
do
just haven't credit.
Okay, do you have the breakdown on hospitality and culinary?
Thank you. And this is from the capture census data. In all the community And the 4 or 5 delivery park pathways we have here, 70. And combining all the hospitality. we have.
So 79 total for for those two programs.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
Our credit
Well,
hours are up 6.4% last fall. and, hospitality, 2%.
But those numbers were pretty low since right about COVID time,
Hospitality.
hospitality, yeah.
not to be that guy, but Dr. Mohammed wrote a paper to KBOR when Wichita WSU Tech was wanting to do their, stating there's not enough
He-
students for 2
He's not
hospitality
write it.
programs.
ESOM didn't write it. That was our response to their,
I believe you asked him
Request.
to get data to submit to KBOR.
we submitted it. ESOM didn't submit it, but we used some of the numbers that he provided
Right,
us.
but we told KBOR there's not enough room for 2 hospitality programs. It just seems like a good deal for frontage land. Just I don't see a building for hospitality in the future. Seems like
The
a-
reason that we did that at that time was again to try and protect this program. And to try and convince the Technical Education Authority that they didn't need to start another program and KBOR to start another program. That's why we submitted those comments. Anybody can submit comments when there's a new program
I'm
that's
saying if
proposed.
It's what we truthfully told the KBOR. I don't think.
We just
can-
didn't want them to start a second program.
Right.
Well,
I don't
you
wanna
can't
build-
be
I don't want to build a building for a program that's not a second program. I mean, we've got plenty of buildings.
Don't worry,
Space.
Wichita State Tech is deceitful.
I'm not saying we're deceitful.
not
I'm just
worried
saying
about
I don't see the need for a building. Especially with how this building was built and the lease
No,
that presented to
The
us.
the building is not on the table, but I think that making sure that we have the land so we can make a decision whether or not to is critical. Because you can't make that decision if you don't have the land. And so,
If there's
But-
someone willing to front the money and I'm, $10 a foot's not out of line for that land, then I don't see a problem in that. I don't know if we're actually going to discuss the whole buying the building, from the foundation side, if that's a different night, but
Yeah.
that's.
I don't
something-
want to do that though. As a preliminary to somebody deciding to reserve that spot. If the donors want to make that donation,
That's what I'm saying. It's a
Right.
donation, so
I
it's
don't
not
think it should
costing
be
us.
contingent upon whether or not the board decides to buy the existing culinary. building.
Right. I agree with that.
Especially because they had absolutely no say in any of it.
I mean, I'd have to run the number, sorry, Shelby.
Oh, no.
Run the numbers of, you mentioned the interest being paid, the $30,000. Is that $30,000 in interest on that 1.3 million? Is that in addition to our lease payments? So that's
no,
total.
that is, so the lease payment is basically paying the interest.
Okay, so it's the 26,000 a year.
Yeah.
So at that rate, we would be crazy to buy it at 1.3 million,
agree.
even if we got $600,000 or $700,000 back, just because time value of money, if you do the math on that, the return on that investment's insanely poor. I mean, the 26,000 a year is an absolute gift. And if you look at what the value of that building is, it's nowhere near 5 million because it's encumbered by our lease and our lease makes it way less valuable. So it's like cart and horse kind of thing. But the college definitely got a good deal in having that building built and done and great, wonderful, but purchasing it just, if you run the numbers, doesn't make financial sense based on what the lease payments are. You're way better to lease it.
Over time, though, so help me understand that, because over time, 20 years, we're gonna spend more than $500,000 in lease. And essentially what that building is gonna cost us is $500,000 or $600,000 to purchase it. So help me understand how
Because
that
if you,
doesn't. how
because
that
if you
doesn't-
go on from a or from a real estate standpoint, if you have $26,000 a year in lease income
Uh-huh.
and you want a 5% return on your money, the value is $520,000 of that. So if we're paying 1.3 million for something that's generating a value of 520,000, that doesn't make any sense.
Tim, I think they're
But you're
saying they're
getting the
gonna,
donations back. You're
they're
getting the
gonna-
outstanding donations back to reduce that
They're wanting to,
1.3 to about 600,000.
yeah, want us to
Right.
buy for about 600,000.
Right, over the course of,
No,
over the course
right- Right now.
like right now. Exactly. Okay, so if you say that actually isn't that bad of a
That's not
deal.
bad.
If you
You're
take the 26,000 divided by 600, then that's, 4% return. That's not terrible. It's just the lease is so low and so appealing and no risk. That's the thing, because you don't know what's going to go on in the culinary, you don't know what's going to go on the hospitality, and we have that right to buy it at any point in time. And those $700,000 donations are going to be there at any point in time. We're not costing ourselves that much money by waiting just to see what happens. And if it were to go south and we own this building, saying that it's worth 5 million, I think is just, it's just a pie in the sky number. That's what it costs to build it. That's not necessarily what it would bring on the market. And, you know, taxes, insurance, all that kind of stuff play into what someone would pay for it too.
You could,
But it's a very specific building too. If we aren't going to use it, then what's it going to be used for? And then what is it true, its true value in the market? So it's not a terrible number. I mean, it's actually very fair, but it's just a matter of risk and return, I guess, and trying to figure out what's going to happen in this industry in the future.
I would just say like 600,000 at 3.5% interest, which you can get in a CD now. I think super safe is 21 grand a year. So you can pretty much keep our 600,000, lease it for a few years, see what happens.
Yeah.
Be out $0. My only concern with the land is if we do something like that, I don't want to have the strings attached like we're in the culinary building. If it's not used for hospitality or culinary, we lose our lease, he takes it back and he does what he wants with it.
No,
If there's any type of language like that on the land, I would have zero interest.
yeah, no, there's no reversion language. It'll be in this. It'll be just capturing the land. We have it, and then we can have conversations on the hospitality building opportunity. And but if we wait,
But if another opportunity comes up for like IT or something, and we want to build a building right there, like it's some new technical program that Butler can get in on and have use the land for that, and not it's only set apart for hospitality, and if you don't do hospitality, it's gone and you can't, I mean, that's what I want to make sure that's,
well, so you've got, because you have a donor involved in this, you have his interest in what happens, and it's his money. So you're trying to bring the interest of the donor plus the need of the college, and you're trying to find that nexus. But to try to tell the donor, you need to do this with your money, that becomes a more difficult conversation, and that it becomes a challenge. And so
No,
the
I
donor
mean,
that
if
we,
that's the case, I'd rather buy it ourselves. For
Yeah, I don't
200,000
think we're
and we
telling
own
the
it.
donor how to.
We can do what we
use his
want with
money.
it.
I think we're insisting on not being used. And if it's a better financial deal for the college, and that's what we all have to think about. If it's a better financial deal for the college to lease for the next period of time, maybe 3 years. I think that's long enough to know whether it's gonna be a go or not. Even if we do lose the place next door or whatever. I don't want to be tied like we've been tied in this one. I
Yeah.
don't want to be tied like that.
I guess the other thing to think of, if we do buy the building outright, we own it, that lease is null and void with Redler, and we could use culinary building for something else because that doesn't void our lease.
right, well, the lease is gone if you buy the,
Right, he would no longer have,
Right.
it'd be, Yeah.
Yeah, you know, if culinary fails in any way, you really kind of have to buy the building so you can use it for something else.
Right.
our lease states
But-
if we do any other program in it, we lose it and he can sell it.
Right.
The way he is.
Or he can
Yep.
buy it, he can buy it back at any time for an unspecified amount.
So
Okay.
it's not a very good lease. That's why we didn't vote for it.
But
Yeah.
buying it for 600,000. That's on the location it's at.
Well, but it's really 1.3 million minus the 700 over time. So there's a loss of, you know, we don't know when we're getting that 700. Is that correct?
Over 10 years.
Over
It's
10
the-
years.
Yeah.
And
the
then you
gifts
have
all
to
have to
look
be
at the
paid
cost
over.
of
And they're-
investing.
and they're
Some
not-
of them will be paid.
Yeah,
back.
they're
So
not-
at
they're not- we have
1.3
one
million
that's-
over even 5 years, it makes,
yeah, we have one,
calculation isn't
we have
there.
one gift that's at 10 years, but majority of them are 3 to 5 years.
That's good information.
We just wanted to put it out there in front of you so you had an update and
You got
some
a
time to
majority here.
think about it. So.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
The next item that, was up for discussion was, board policies. Had asked for folks to email their suggestions. And, Dave had sent a suggestion to talk about code of conduct and responsibilities, and Forrest, I think at the last meeting had, passed out the information request and a potential new policy on information requests. And then, because I didn't hear back from anybody else about possible policies, Forrest suggested that we look at philosophy of compensation and professional development because those are pretty straightforward and, didn't think that there would be a lot of potential changes to those. And so he suggested that maybe you guys look at those first tonight and just see, what you think about those. And then we could start through the other ones and talk about some potential changes. No decisions tonight and not necessarily any that have to be made in October at the board meeting, but we just want to start the conversation about these and, and start the process. So from what I remember, when philosophy of compensation and the philosophy of compensation one's been in place for quite a while, since 2006. The professional development one had been part of the board book for quite a while. This shows a revision date. This shows the September 2 years ago that it was actually adopted this, but I think it had been in place longer than that because I can remember seeing it in the handbook. But we want to talk about those first. Should we talk about those first?
I'm confused. Exactly what is it that we came tonight to do? Possibly
To
the
start to talk
culinary.
about, to talk about board policies,
And the other was board policy.
and then board evaluation was the other one.
Okay, so this fits under which?
Those are policies. Those are board policies.
Board policy.
I'm so
right?
sorry that I did not let you know which policies I wanted to look at.
Well,
Well, what I had concerns
So-
of were this stapled together page, because it was in our
Okay.
board book,
in September.
September
20.
8th of 2020.
Yeah. So-
Page 30,
Right.
39. There was a lot of, I forwarded everybody that PDF, and all the red
Sure.
stuff is the stuff that changed
Yep,
back then.
a
So I think
lot of
it's the
stuff
new,
changed.
but yeah, this is
So-
some of the ones.
Do you want to talk about these other two first and then we can dig into
Yes.
code of conduct and responsibilities and just see if
Yes.
these, they're shorter. That was Forrest's suggestion, is that we look at those because they're a little bit shorter and decide if there's, things that you see on these, and you all have had copies of these. I think we emailed all the policies out to you previously, so.
Do we want to have them revised every 2 years?
Not necessarily reviewed. They don't have to be revised. They need to be, Ken and Mary suggested, I think you guys decided at the planning retreat, at the board retreat, that they needed to be reviewed every 3 years, if I remember correctly from the notes that came from the retreat.
So it would be adopted, revised, and then another one for
just-
reviewed.
No, we would just note that it had been looked at again. I can change this, revised, reviewed, you don't have to change them. But they're suggesting, if you don't revise it, you don't make any changes to it, we can note that it's been reviewed again. So just shows that you're going back through and looking at them again.
And sometimes verbiage change. It's just little verbiage that changed. I didn't see anything on the philosophy of compensation that really was out of the ordinary.
I don't see anything on that, but I'd like to read them at home too. And the second one, the personal development. We can be expected to do that, but we're not required to do that.
It doesn't say required, it
Right,
says
right. No, I
expected.
know.
I think, and the professional development doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do conferences or bring people in. You guys can achieve professional development through webinars that ACCT offers, or through reading and, through those kinds of things. And so this isn't a unreasonable expectation. My direct reports have an expectation every year that they participate in at least 2 professional development activities as part of their annual goals. Because you need to continue to learn and grow.
I think most school boards have that
Sure.
recommendation too.
I'm not real keen on spending money to go to New York or Florida or whatever on
It's expensive.
conference, and we can
But you can
listen
bring
to an
people in,
audio
or you
book
can-
or,
yeah.
or their CT has a lot of good podcasts.
Yeah.
They have a lot of good Zoom stuff, so.
We do, you are required every year to participate. You should be required every year by state statute to participate in the negotiations training, those updates and stuff. I mean, the negotiations team has to, but we always try to include the board, in those as well. And I think we had that opportunity through KACCT this past year. And so that would be considered a form of professional development as well.
I think that sounds fine too on 1035.
Well, so unless I hear anything significantly from you between now and, well, we have to send the board book to the Secretarial Center next Tuesday morning. Unless there's major changes that you would suggest, we're not going to put these on the agenda in October for anything if you're not going to change anything, right? The professional
Well-
development and the philosophy of compensation.
I,
If they're
I
okay
would
the
say,
way they are,
if they're okay the way they are, I'd say that we,
you can just
that-
leave them.
well, or at least say that they were reviewed.
Yeah, I think we need to put reviewed.
I think we need to put reviewed in the date to update the date.
I wouldn't vote for 1035 unless it said expected but not required. Or unless it also has the additional, this could also include Zoom webinars, podcast, audio books, or books.
That's
Excuse
fine.
me.
Revise that a little bit if you want
That's
me to
fine.
and send it back out to you.
And you want it to say required or,
Expected but not required,
oh, okay, expected,
Or-
but not.
or say expected, and instead of having
And then just
national.
expand.
state,
Encouraged.
local, you could also say, which could include, you could say that verbiage plus, it could also include a book or
Okay,
podcasts, Zoom meetings, ACCT, webinars. So it's not requiring us to do something national.
Right.
Only.
and when it says local programs, that maybe doesn't include, that doesn't give enough detail for the things that you're talking about, but I'll go ahead and expand the language on this and send it back out to everybody.
Okay. And then we will review these again at board meeting or not.
Well, what I would suggest is, I guess if this is a simple change, I can send it back out and have you look at it. We'll put it on the board agenda for October as an action item. And if it's still not right, then, then we can talk about it then and it can come back in November or something. So. But we might as well, I'll try to revise the language and expand it just a little bit and see if it's okay for you guys to approve in October.
Now, on those information requests, that'd be a new board policy, correct?
Yes, this is a,
I like that they said, it needs to probably come back to the board. We discuss it to see whether we go ahead with the core request or not.
Why would you want to do that, Mary Martha?
So
If I could get my request without a core, don't you think I would?
Julie, it's
Shelby
taken-
can tell you the same thing. There's been some of his core requests that he has had to make Cora because he doesn't get the information either. I mean,
I haven't read this yet, so I don't know. What to.
this is the one that Forrest passed out at the last board meeting.
I'm sure this is
It was suggested at the board retreat. We had some discussion about information requests. We talked about Cora policy. And if you remember correctly, Ken asked, I think it was Ken that said, you have a Cora policy, right? And we said yes, and he, asked if we applied it the same internally as externally.
but what
I
did
think-
Mr. HLC, Tom, what did he say at his meeting when he came here and talked to the board? Before we had a newly elected people? Do you
Who?
remember what he said?
About information requests,
HLC,
Yes.
Tom Bordenkercher.
Do you remember what he said?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. Help me.
That
understand.
basically any information, we have the right to look under any
Sure.
rock or
Yeah.
whatever we want to get information.
Yeah, I think what
And I
this
don't
is,
think the board has the right to tell a member that they can't have it.
I don't think that that's what they're saying.
That's exactly what they're saying. They're saying, Julie, what? You know what? If we don't want your request, we don't want to do it, we're not going to give it to you.
Julie, I think we want to know why you want the
You
information
may
and
not
what,
understand why, just like, let me give you a recent example. Do you remember me coming to a board meeting a couple of months ago and requesting information on, well, actually, I didn't request any. I was scolded and threatened with censorship because I called to see if Josh still worked as the director of safety or whatever you want to call him, the police chief. And I was scolded so bad and threatened with censorship. And look what came out this week. When I asked for information, I want it.
I think you need to let us know why you want it and what will you glean from it.
Well, I
And
was
share it
wanting
with
it. I
us.
was wanting it back then. And I explained to the board why I wanted it. I thought there'd been a terrific uptick of vacancies and turnover in the police department. And I was looking for a reason why. And I got no response other than, yes, we're gonna have to put some meat in that censor policy. Rah! You know, that wasn't fair to me. Just like this policy change. I think I've been very upfront with all of the board members, especially since I email all of them when I'm asking for some information. And often say why I'm looking at it, sometimes not, but often say why I'm looking for it. But for the board to come together, because you're only going to get 4 people, that's it, to get that passed. But you're siding against the minority, honestly. All I want is information. We don't have it. We don't have BKD. We don't have a lot of information that we've requested. We can't even get where some of the surplus went. I mean, I'm just saying that it's honestly a bigotry to tell a board member, an elected board member, that they can't have information unless the board thinks that they have a legitimate reason for it.
Let me clarify this just a little bit.
I think that pretty much clarified it right there, don't you?
Well, can I respond, please?
You can
I'd like to
respond, but
respond.
you will not change my mind.
I'm not gonna try to
I
change
think
your
this
mind.
is all you doing this.
I'm simply doing what Forrest asked. And what we had some conversation about. I think the concern is sometimes the information requests and the amount of time that they take to put together, the staff time that they take to put together. And so the point behind this would be that if it takes if it takes more time, this says than 30 minutes. There are other policies that I've looked at that say 15 minutes. That if it takes that amount of time, then a request could be submitted as a core request and then you would be charged for it.
You want us to always, at least we always try. I know I personally always try to request things that I know you already have. But if I can't depend on you to tell me what's going on in a certain department, like I asked for a couple months ago, and then I see this ugly article about what really has happened in that department in the newspaper, why in the world would I believe you or trust you? What would motivate you to think
So
that I
what-
would trust you to give me an honest answer? That's going to take 2 hours.
Well, let me give you another example that, the information that you requested from Get Inclusive. Okay.
Now,
the-
is
okay,
that not
well,
a canned presentation?
No, it's not. It's a web-based presentation. We didn't have the ability to download it. That's why we offered to come to the board meeting and show it to you.
Okay.
We didn't have the ability to download it in the right way so that it had the embedded videos and all that sort of stuff. So Sherry Connard contacted Get Inclusive and they had their folks over a 2 to 3 day time frame work on that to get that downloaded in a format that was that we could share with you, that
So they had to rewrite it? in order to share
no,
with the board?
it was web-based. They downloaded it so they could embed the videos and the links for the videos and all of that sort of stuff.
Because there's licenses.
Yeah.
Okay. well,
And so that's an
explainable.
example.
That's
Yeah, but that's a perfect example of using resources. We didn't have the ability to do that. We had to go to Get Inclusive. They had people work on it for 2 to 3 days, Sherry said, to get it done. And so, that was an example of something we didn't have access to, that we couldn't provide for you, that we had to have somebody else do. Not everything that you ask for is a report that we have. Not everything you ask for is actually covered under Cora. we do the very best that we can to provide the information that you
You're right,
need.
not all of it's covered under Cora,
It's not.
but a lot of the information that I request.
A lot of it, you think
The
we have the
animosity could
reports.
totally be avoided if I felt like the college administration had always been more forthcoming than they had. I don't know how
So,
I can say that any nicer.
Well, that's fine. Your point is well taken. I understand what you're saying. So
so what was, I don't read the paper. What was in the paper?
we're not, I
Oh.
mean, it's not a conversation. It talked about the fact that 2 of our police officers had lost their certification at the state level, but it's not a conversation we can have in
Right.
in an open
Oh,
meeting. If
sure,
you
so
wanna-
it's
in the
It's a
paper.
personnel issue.
But it's in the newspaper. It's
But
not
what you want to know,
information.
what you want to know
No, no,
is
no,
the
I'm saying
reason
we can
why,
discuss the article that was published in the public newspaper.
but it's
Yes.
not part of this discussion.
No, no, I'm
tonight.
just saying that is public information. It's not,
But if you want to know the reasons why or the personnel pieces behind it or
the
all those
newspaper
kinds of
said they
things.
lied and falsified some information and they were fired.
Okay.
My only
So-
concern with this,
The information request one,
right, if
Okay.
someone from the public requests information, we can't say that'll take longer than 30 minutes. We're not doing it.
we,
There's no verbiage in here saying if we choose to charge people and still complete it. This is very vague and doesn't really say,
this doesn't apply. The Cora request applies to people from the outside. They would have to file a Cora request and we would
right,
charge
but
them
you're
for
saying
that.
if a board member does it, we'll decide whether a board member gets it, but remember, if the public does it, there's nothing along those lines, because they would still get their information.
Well,
Well,
they
I
would
think
charge
the
them
only-
anyway, which is
They
what
would
they
get-
want to do, so I'll.
They would
deter
get
from
their
it.
information if it falls under Cora, if it's
Right.
something that,
And they might
if a
have to
report-
possibly pay per page time or whatever.
well, they pay, yeah, they pay.
Right, right. I
they pay
understand,
per-
But that doesn't say that here. It makes it sound like we request it and the board decides they don't want to give it to us. It may not happen. There's no verbiage of,
That's exactly what it
if
is.
it does happen.
No,
I
it'll be
think
this
you
much
you
per
you
page.
can
cities-
apply the Cora, you can apply the
I'm
Cora
just saying,
policy
this
college wide.
Page doesn't sound legal to me. It sounds like.
Does cities and counties do that? They charge?
Cora,
They
Oh,
can- they can.
School districts do.
They
Yeah.
can,
School
I never
districts
get
do.
charged a dime from Butler County. I'm just telling you right now. Not a dime.
Charged from 490.
But if it's a
What?
buck a page.
got
or
charged
$2 a
from
page or
$4.90.
whatever.
What's 490?
School district.
Oh,
But this
Well,
doesn't say
school
information will
districts
be
are
provided
notorious
at a
about
rate of X.
overcharging. But
This says information may not be provided if we don't feel what we want to provide it to. you.
Yeah, I would
That's not
question,
legal. Good leg to stand on without us getting in trouble.
yeah, I don't know the legalities of it and would question that, but I think the only way something like this could work in our current situation would be if we say that it's presented to the board and that there's a 6-0 majority to, the one person requesting it being left out of the vote, say no, that they don't need it, because where he stands right now, we have a 4-3 split on so many things. It
Yep.
just puts it to where, oh, it's nope, 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 we don't have time, nope, nope. And, if all 6 of us can look at it and say, really not necessary, what's your justification? And there's a logical discussion, then vote it down. Okay, maybe. But the way it stands with where we're at right now, I don't think this would be fair.
I guess I would ask then for some guidance from the board and we can think about it. Don't have to have any,
Kim
anything.
just gave you some really good guidance.
I would just say if it.
Can I
apply-
finish
if-
what I was saying?
Oh, I
I
thought you were
would-
done.
I guess I would appreciate from an administrative perspective, having some guidance then when the requests do come in for information, how you want us to handle them. So for instance, it says and we talked about it again in the board retreat, that an individual board member's request, an individual board member doesn't really have the ability to direct administration to do something on their own. It has to come from the board as a whole. So I guess I need some guidance then on how you as a board want us to manage information requests, understanding that individual board members don't have the authority on their own to direct administration to do something. Because I don't know. I mean, because again, we're
Well-
using administrative time and resources to do these. We're taking people away from, especially if they take some time, taking people away from potentially other work that needs to be done. If it's something that has to be developed or created, if it's something we have that's easy, that's not a big deal. But
I think that's
I
where
need
this,
some direction from the board.
that's where this 30-minute thing comes in. I mean, if that's gonna be the criteria, say, okay, we get this request and it can't be done in 30 minutes, then we take it, put it on the next meeting agenda, and then whoever's making the request says the request, administration responds as to what it's gonna take, how much
Mhm.
time and why,
Mhm.
and then you vote on that. And then that way you're not automatically required to address everything that comes in.
I think also, Julie, if I'm right on this, and I don't want to get into a negative disagreement with you, but what I think happened is that you requested the college to make up these reports for you, that they were not familiar with your accounting that you wanted. They had what they had, you didn't like it, and you just kept giving it back to them. Am I correct?
No, you are not correct. No, I know that the university or the college has a number of canned reports. Okay. I have never been offered the opportunity to sit down and go through them so that I could find what I would like to have. And I've asked for that, but I've never had that opportunity granted to me. Because every institution, unless they're in the dark ages, has already has canned reports. They have canned reports on labor, they have canned reports by organization, budget, actuals, all these things.
But why would, why?
Why would I want them?
Uh-huh.
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want them? Why wouldn't you want to see what we're spending? Why wouldn't you want to see how
Now
many
you're going
people
into a
that,
different
hold on,
direction.
that have what
That,
we've
I'm
hired?
talking the
between-
canned reports. I mean, you
Right,
can
a
get,
canned report. Like, why wouldn't you, as a trustee, want to see where we were last year in our total labor by organization and where we are this year?
Julie, that's not, I don't, you're putting words in your mouth about what I want and what I don't want. What I am
No,
saying
I'm
is
asking, why
that
wouldn't you want that? I mean,
I
I don't
would,
understand
I
why you
would, but
wouldn't.
what
wanna
I'm
look at
saying
it.
is that when they have to go to great lengths to create an information page just for you,
That's right.
that's when,
I don't want them to do that.
but they are,
Well,
they're
then
spending lots of time.
all they have to do is come to the middle and say, Julie, look, we don't want to spend a lot of time on this. We're going to be open, the door's open, come in, review what we already have. Instead of just keeping it
But Julie, I look at that as
like
you're
this.
wanting to be an employee of the college instead of letting,
Them
I mean,
run the
we've got a
college.
president of this college
Yes,
who does her job very well, and she has a great leadership team. And it's letting them do their job. My job is not to micromanage.
I don't ever want to do that, but I think
But
that
it
trust and
sounds
verify
like,
is a
it
whole
sounds
different
like to
thing.
me as micromanagement, and I will never vote for
Well,
micromanagement.
That's
I will
your
tell you.
opinion.
You guys just need to define what
We
is,
gotta find a happy medium here.
no, defined legally, what is a record that applies to Cora. You can't have a vote to deny somebody a record that falls under the Kansas Open Records Act.
No, that's true. Can't.
But
can
the
you-
way this
can-
is stating, you're saying you can vote it down if you choose not to. And just looking up Core Online, it says public records that are made, maintained, created, or possessed by a public agency.
Mhm.
Any records that you guys have or make, that you have on record, those
Yeah.
are public information because you're
Right.
publicly funded.
Right.
Someone in the public requests that, we have by law to provide it.
Right, so can you clarify a little bit more some of the things that the Cora requests that you've gotten where things don't apply and
Right.
fall
That's
under
a different,
Cora?
that's a different issue.
We have to create documents. You don't have that kind of record. That's the main thing. You know, generally, if we have to create a document or create, a spreadsheet or something that's not already created, that's not a document. Sometimes it's not black and white. I've had to ask, our attorney at times and we've had to look at different things, but basically, a record is something that we have that has information on it.
Maybe I should just come in and look at my record. Then I can. So that I could-
Right,
Well, that's say paper.
probably not. I mean, you have to have millions of records, so you have to narrow it down. You can't just come in and look at all the records. I mean, you don't have time to do that.
I get the spirit of what you're asking. Let's not have a bunch of busy work
Right.
if it's something not really available.
It's not
But we
right.
can't have a document that says we will not provide public records if we choose not to, because then we're in violation of Kansas law.
Well, what they
That
want
would
to
be
do.
crazy
is
to put in our bylaws. Like,
So if other organizations charge, what's the problem?
Schools do,
Schools do.
schools do, schools
City
charge.
Bell
County
does.
instead of the county may not charge you. The counties and cities charge as well. I mean, don't.
I've never been charged.
I don't,
anything for
I don't
this.
care about the charging. If it's that important to someone, they can pay if they have an idea. It's a couple
But
hundred
if you
bucks.
have it already, you shouldn't charge.
Not disputing that, I'm saying, I don't want this to sound like we're just, I'm sorry for stepping in here, but I don't want it to sound like college just wants to start charging people. The only other entity
They'll
that
just
does
be-
is the school district. Because entities that maintain these records that are subject to Cora, as it states in the Cora law, have the opportunity to exercise that reasonable charge when it's necessary.
Sure.
And school districts, our county, our cities, within our county and Butler have that opportunity and have done it across the board. So I want to, and I apologize.
No, you're good, Bill. I appreciate it.
I,
My only sticking point is the board will vote as a whole whether the president should dedicate college resources to the fulfillment of a request. If you get into a legal Cora request, we can't direct the president to deny somebody's legal Cora, and we could say, hey, it's $300 if you want this information. But we
I
still
think-
have to give it to you,
I think it's creating reports that we don't have.
but we could clarify that, but
Why
it's
is
a
that
record that we have on,
misunderstanding
but you
still
can't, you
here?
can't have this line in here that we can vote
Okay.
to not give somebody.
So,
Alright.
so revise it for me.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
If you want to reconsider and talk about this some more, send me a revision.
Okay.
And we'll continue the discussion about it
No,
right.
That sounds good.
and see if, see if it's reasonable.
I want to go on public record and tell you, it's not my intention to micromanage. It's not my intention to cause you work. But, after a year of not receiving information on a timely basis is when I started writing reports. Just because I wanted to start and end date. But honestly, more forthcoming, I think we can meet in the middle. And if I want to come into Kent's office at some point when he has 30 minutes, then he can just lay all those out. Hey, these are all our monthly reports. Tell me what you think. I mean, that is my background. That's how I see things. You may not, you're an academic. You have a different world.
You know what?
If
I
you-
do see things the same way,
But
Julie,
then
and I
you
think
become
you're,
an Employee. You
Yeah.
come
Oh,
here, supposed to
David,
become
you've
an
been working for
employee.
the school district too long. I'm not an
No,
employee.
I'm thinking about, you're looking at records.
Don't
that-
you believe in verifications?
Yes, but there's
Okay.
employees that
Yes,
do a
of course.
verification.
Right.
Well, that's great. I
I
like.
I
to see-
trust the employees.
Well, good for you.
I mean,
I'm not
Okay,
saying
so
I
it
don't
sounds
trust
to
them. I'm
me-
saying that I like.
I would
to
just like to
verify.
clean up the
Sounds-
verbiage. I'm a
that's fine.
stickler
Why
on
don't
what
you-
something actually says.
why don't you do some revisions for me and we'll put them back in front of
I've got
people
a couple
again.
lawyer buddies.
don't
I'll
need to-
say, hey, how do you clarify that statement?
Yeah.
And I've asked 4 or 5 different meetings, what happened to all the projectors that we replaced with short throw projectors? I sent another email a couple months ago,
Well, and I think we
from-
clarified for you that Ribbit picks up all of that information.
but
all
there
of the
wasn't a
e-waste.
listing on Ribbit of item numbers that were specific for projectors. I'd sent a
think
follow-up
that
and
it
didn't hear
did.
back on that.
I take everything.
We asked them to inventory and list the PCs, the laptops and the monitors because we get paid for those. They take all of the rest of our e-waste and those projectors are e-waste. They take our keyboards, our mice. We don't have all of those listed because any other e-waste that we have, if they don't take them, then we have to pay somebody to dispose of that. So part of that with Ribbit is that they dispose of our e-waste. We get paid for computers, monitors, and computers, meaning desktops and laptops and monitors.
Right.
That's what we get paid for.
So there's no record of our high-end projectors being e-waste being picked up by Ribbit.
Volume items that they picked up, but no, they did not list each individual.
But there's a
Piece.
listing on there that hey, we had a box of projectors.
Sure.
That's
I
all
can-
I'm asking for. I haven't
can-
seen
I can
anything.
get that from them. I don't want to call them high-end projectors because we don't get rid of them until they're 15 or 20 years old.
Well,
So
we had special money from HERP funds to replace them with short throw projectors.
exactly. The
I'm
ones that
just
were
saying, I'm
old.
just saying,
ones
I've
that are
asked,
out of
I've
date.
asked for
And
this.
and I'm sorry,
probably
and I
5 times.
apologize, Shelby.
And
I thought that I explained,
No.
this
you-
already,
I've
that-
explained that, but not specifically with projectors. And I don't want, I haven't been wanting to make a core request for projectors. But there has to be a record of it and I would like to see that. Because I haven't seen it so far.
that we
And-
disposed of projectors.
I want an item list.
I'm
from
telling you,
Ribbit
there's-
that says projectors. I want to
Okay.
see it. Just because I've asked so many times and not seen
Sure.
it.
that's
The
easy.
Columbo in me is like, hey,
So,
this
so
is
you
still
need
in
a
my
list,
head.
you need a note from Ribbit saying they picked up projectors from
I
us,
want
because that's
their
what you're gonna
pickup,
get.
I want their pickup dated when they did it. I want
And how
not,
many,
not a new piece of paper like, yeah, we got that stuff. I'm just concerned that I've asked so many times and never been provided that just, hey, here's the date we picked it up, here's the invoice, box of projectors. Does, if
Okay.
that doesn't exist, say that doesn't exist.
I mean, I'll find out from them. Like I said, it's either,
Right, but I just don't want people taking projectors home and laptops
They
home.
aren't.
I understand, but I haven't seen anything that says, here's where the projectors went. Here's the line item.
okay,
That's why it's just a very specific ask I've had.
that's
Many
fine. And
times.
I'll see if that information exists. Other,
And if
It may
it
or-
doesn't, let me know and
I
I'll
don't
quit
know.
being curious.
it may or
but-
may, I'll find out. What I know is all of our e-waste goes to Ribbit.
Right.
Computers, again, laptops, desktops and monitors. We get the full
10 or
inventory
15
because we
bucks,
get
whatever,
paid
yeah.
for that.
Right.
The rest of it goes into giant boxes of trash, because that's what it is. And so it's gone and they haul off those boxes of trash. So I will find out what they have documentation on those boxes of
I
trash.
understand. My concern is the day before we got COVID bucks, we had top of the line everything because we're Butler and we do great stuff in our.
Oh.
The kids from WSU came over to our 3D programming and they're like, your computers are amazing. They're so much better
Sure.
than ours. And this is 2 years ago. And then soon, the day we get COVID bucks, it's garbage and trash and not worth anything. It's like, those are still worth quite a
That's-
bit. And I just want to see,
I don't think that
Projectors.
that's accurate. I don't
That's
think
not, that's not an
accurate.
accurate statement though, Shelby.
We
That's not a
have-
fair statement. I'm sorry, Dr. Pearl, but
We have a
the-
replacement.
the reality is we have 270 classrooms. And so the classroom, sure, our 3D lab has always had top of the line equipment in it. The projectors in a significant number of our classrooms over the years have standard old projectors. Most of them are back, they're not HDMI. I mean, we've replaced obviously, and to your point, with some COVID short throw stuff and some COVID dollars. And each year prior to that, we replaced a number of projectors, about 25 at a time, because that's what we could afford to do. And so, I mean, I don't disagree that we've got absolutely have some labs that have some really nice equipment in it. And I appreciate the fact that people recognize that, because that's something that we do try to pride ourselves on. But we also had and still do have in some areas, some very dated equipment. And so our objective is to continue to work to replace that stuff. Now, some of the projectors were super old, some of them were not quite as old, but we didn't replace any projectors just to be replacing projectors.
I mean,
I don't replace computers just to replace
we
computers.
replaced doorknobs because we could use
I-
COVID money
You know,
on
I didn't replace
self-opening
doorknobs.
doorknobs, self-cleaning doorknob. We replaced tables that are easier to clean because,
I didn't replace any tables. I'm just
no,
talking
no,
about
I get it. I've just made a specific ask on projectors multiple
Sure.
times. and
I'll
I
take
don't
a
want to
look.
be a jerk and submit a core request.
I'll
If
take a
that
look.
could be provided
hey,
to
don't
me,
call me a jerk.
I would appreciate it. That's all I'm
I'll take
asking.
a look. I'm telling you, I don't know what we're gonna find, but I know that I get reports and we inventory what we know that we're gonna get paid for, because that's how that contract, everything else is trash. It
The-
costs us money to dispose of the trash, so we let them take it.
The only other thing I just want to make sure of is that we are abiding by the the statutes of Kansas and surplusing government equipment. You know, surplusing equipment that belong to the taxpayers per se. And there are statutes specifically on that. So I'm just making sure that you are aware of those.
We are not in violation of any statutes in surplusing equipment. Those things that are provided by state grants, we have specific
Perkins grant.
disposal instructions for those. The other things that are, I say the other things, not all of them, other things that are non-capitalized items don't fall under the KSA surplusing pieces. And with the price of the vast majority of technology today, most of that stuff falls under that, into that non-capitalized piece. There was a time when we were buying high, very, very expensive, you know, all computers were expensive, or we're buying, you know, these terminals that are, you know, in an older age where a standard PC was $2,000 or $3,000 and that was capitalized. When our desktop computers now are $600, they fall under the non-capitalized equipment piece, which does not fall in the surplus piece, surplus definition in those statutes. I appreciate that, because that's something that we do pay attention to.
Do we ever try to sell any of that stuff before? we
Ab-
just-
Absolutely not anymore. And I can explain that if you'd like.
You've explained that a couple times.
I have, and
Yeah.
I'm
We
happy
don't-
to,
We don't need to go.
happy to
over it.
No.
continue there. We are not gonna sell that stuff
No.
at all.
Okay, guys, it's 20 till 6 and usually we try and end at 6.
Thank you, Mary. Can we look at this big monster one and,
Yep, start through it.
Uh-huh.
oh, I meant look at it at home.
Yeah.
But it's the same one as,
I've already looked at it.
and it's all fine for you, I know.
No, I
Dave
I
had some
wrote
suggestions.
suggestions.
Let's start with yours, Dave, since you took the time to write some suggestions. Pull your, remember which bullet points you pulled out?
I Have to. Mine are on the code of ethics.
Okay, well, we're not talking about the
No,
code
wait
of
a minute.
ethics.
I don't think it was on the code of ethics. Wait a
I think it was on this one.
That's one
I
we're,
think it was on-
that's
Is
one
this
we're on.
10,
minute. Code of
15?
conduct and responsibility.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
that's what's right
Yeah.
here in front of you. Mhm.
Yeah, no. I just looking for my copy. One on the first page, and that was, trustees will promote mutual respect amongst one another and among all college employees and will not use their position to embarrass, intimidate, or threaten employees or students through direct conversation, writing, or through social media. That was number one.
Did you want to change it?
I didn't want to change it. I just think it needs to be highlighted. Um,
On the second one, trustees will devote time, energy, thought, and study to the duties that. We need to take out so and put in as or semicolon.
Trustees will devote time, energy, thought, and study to the duties and responsibilities of the selected office. Oh, as effective
Uh-huh,
and
so-
credible service
Yeah, so it's not,
instead of so,
nope,
I think so, it's fine.
no,
it's supposed to be as. Grammatically, it should be as.
grammatically, right.
But so that,
Get rid of all that. You know
Yes.
me, I do not like that.
yeah. And that can be stuck at that. That can be
So
stuck in there long.
for, I guess Linda's not here, but for Kim and Dave and if Linda was here. When it was time to review these policies again and update them. I should have gone back and looked, but I spent quite a bit of time gathering policies from in-state community college partners, Garden City and Johnson County and Seward and Neosho. And there were a number of them on the list in Kansas that I looked at. And then I also went out and looked at ACCT, but I went to Pima Community College in Maricopa and Joliet Junior College in Illinois. There were some out-of-state ones that had policies, front-facing policies that were easy to access and look at. And so looked at a combination of, all of those policies as these were being reviewed and potentially revised. So that it wasn't just, and I've got a document that shows, and I think I shared it with the board a couple of years ago, but a document that showed all of the different institutional policies that were used in updating these policies, or at least proposing updates to these policies. So it wasn't just an internal look at these, but again, kind of a look at other broader institutions and policies to see what was, out there as examples.
The sixth bullet point down on page 2 needs new verbiage.
The sixth one down, which
Are we on page 2? Because I'm still
Yes.
on page 1.
3, 4, 5, 6, it says
It needs to
trustees
have
understand.
something, yeah, only in properly called meetings. I'm sure there's better verbiage for that. And it needs to be,
What about unofficial meetings?
official, but it needs to be something more, has lots more meat to it, such as. Can't think of a word right now, but
You could say something along the lines of exercises its powers and duties only as a group. Or something.
There's a
That's fine.
bullet that speaks to that in here somewhere.
I
Why
think
don't-
we all need to watch out for number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Number 9, social media.
Which one? On the
Number
second
9 on
page?
page 2.
That's nothing more than stating your own opinion. It's not a, you're
Well,
your own person. You're not representing the board. As an individual, but you don't give up your rights of your opinion. Just because you're on a board.
well, I kind of thought maybe it needed to be reworded.
Well, that's what I thought about the first page. Item number 3,
Bullet point 3.
yeah, on the first page. I mean,
How
I
would
just
you
think we
reword it?
really need to go through
I
each
would
one of
stop
these.
it after college employees and students. That would be the end of it right there. That's just on the first page. And I don't think, you know. This has to be a two-way street.
It certainly
This
does.
cannot be a one-way street.
I'm not, that's why we're putting them out here
Well,
is
I
for
don't know.
discussion.
I'm just
I-
saying.
I would like to look at this on my free time and then send in some suggestions. The
Yeah,
way
okay.
Forrest
Yeah,
presented
Please
it.
do.
I have some
No,
markup.
the way Forrest presented, we're all gonna send some ideas. We'll vote up or down what we're gonna discuss. And then we'll go over those specifics. And this is like a lot of stuff
Okay.
that I didn't know beforehand would be specifically tonight. But I had it in here, but I didn't go through it because I didn't figure
Okay.
this would be the, it wasn't like, hey, that's what we're doing tonight. And I would have been like, oh, cool, I'll read that. Just like, hey, this is what I would like to go over.
Yeah,
But your main responsibility is to rewrite
Shelby's gonna work on the
Number
information request.
1035.
Double X.
Oh, yeah,
10
10 double X.
yes.
you're
Okay.
gonna work on the whole thing, aren't you?
No. I
Just
mean, I
wanna
made a
rewrite
bunch
'em
of
all
notes
there.
in 2020 when we went over this, and I made a motion to amend one of them already.
Okay.
But I didn't reread this last night. I'd rather not sit here and read,
Okay, well,
try
that's
to
fine.
come up with something pithy right now.
Well, if you will, yeah, if you'll send those suggestions in, I mean, because we've asked for information.
I know, and I
before,
apologize. I
doesn't-
did not
yeah.
do it.
If you'll send the suggestions in so we can, it'll be helpful if, it would be helpful even if, well, I guess let me ask this. Do you want to take time, if you're gonna, look at revising and, have more discussion, do you want to take time at the October board meeting to look at these, or you want to wait until the October work session?
I think we need
October.
a work session every other month instead of every month.
No, I'd say,
Work session,
I'd say. this.
work session.
Rather than taking board time to
Yes.
talk about it,
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Shelby? You're kind of thinking,
Well, if we don't have anything to change, I don't know why we need to have a whole session about it. If we read it and say, hey, everything's fine except for my problem with that sentence.
so, okay, so here's
We
the
could-
other thing.
When is this due? I thought you said.
Well,
first
tomorrow.
Meeting, it was due Tuesday to be printed off or something.
well, we have to have the board
Well,
book compiled and
We're a
sent to
year
the
early.
we have to have the board book compiled and sent to the secretarial center Tuesday morning.
Oh, you're talking for the meeting, not.
Yes,
I
the
thought you meant the bylaws to be redone by next.
Oh,
like-
no,
Like, you
no,
guys are
the
great.
board book,
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah.
board
okay.
book.
Earth
I'm
to
good now.
Shelby, come in, please.
My,
You guys
my,
do it right now and we're printing it Tuesday. That's what I heard.
No,
Yeah.
sorry.
that's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So my only question too, like on these policies are all well and good, but if there's no enforcement of them, I mean, you talk about, mutual respect and whatever else. I've seen more than one instance of disrespect on this board. It's, not just in one person. And so it's kind of when I was saying with regard to the board evaluation, what's the point if we're just gonna do it? and
Well, you guys are the ones who have to police
that's what we're
yourselves.
doing?
It's the
but-
board's
but what's-
responsibility to police yourself.
But
We
I
will
think
hold
there
up little
needs
signs, remember? Be
something.
kind.
to me, I don't know, somehow it's like there has to be some kind of implementation or consequence if the majority of the board feels someone is acting inappropriately
Well,
or
there's-
whatever.
There's also a policy on violation of board policy.
Mhm.
There's a policy on violation of board policy. There's, that's the other half of these that, that we don't have in front of you tonight.
Because
So
just because
there's-
someone disagrees with you doesn't mean they're being rude. It just,
As long as they do it in a civil way.
right.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've seen more than one person not be that. I don't think it's just all to one person.
If I
Yeah.
remember right, last time we revised these, Shelby and I voted against the revisions. And I fear that voting on any of the bylaws again will somehow approve all the ones we didn't vote for last time. So anything that we bring before the board, I'd like to vote on page 3, 4, and 5, or whatever it is that we're revising, because
You guys didn't vote against all the policies.
we voted against the updates.
I don't remember.
Not
I don't
all-
either. I don't,
Okay, well, I'm sorry. Can-
I don't think you did. I know, Julie.
You know,
So
Like
I
on the
just,
four-
I
four-
hate anything that constricts my free speech and
I know, but honey, I don't think you did updates.
But like,
I think that was a big 6-0 or 7-0 passage.
I don't know, but like the fourth bullet point down, second page, it says trustees will base personal voting decisions on all facts. And abide and uphold the final majority decision of the board. That's worded much better than the stuff where we will support the majority decision in public. Not just uphold the decision. It's, I
What
mean, this is
page?
two. I mean, this is worded much better than some of our other pages.
Needs a period.
yeah. I'm with Shelby. I'd
I've
rather
got you
review
school
it.
teachers in here. It's all right. I get a
So-
red, I get a red check mark there.
And that's typing teacher.
Yeah, yeah.
Before,
That doesn't make sense though. So it's not to convey the perception, personal opinions.
No, it's the fourth one. It just doesn't say we have to.
I'm on the 9th one. The 9th one doesn't make sense.
Care and discretion.
So I think the fourth bullet point, speaks to the fact that it's okay to identify to somebody in the public, the board voted on this. I didn't support it. I didn't
That's the
agree with
board's
it.
Decision.
I didn't agree with it, but it's the board's decision and
I didn't know
and
it that
the
way, but
board's
that's what they
moving,
chose to
yeah,
do.
the board's
Right.
moving
So
forward.
it's
got
not
the
to
right-
convey
Yeah.
the
Proper waivers.
perception,
That's what that
personal
says.
opinion.
It doesn't say that you
No,
can't say that you
What I'm
No, but there were
saying,
some other
we
things
need
we
to
had
have a
before
little
that
conjunction
specifically
here,
say that you
Putting
support
on social
the
media.
final
so as
decision of
not
the
to
board in
convey-
public.
There's
It's
a
like,
noun,
that's a
noun, noun.
parsing of the.
Well, and on that.
Or maybe it needs to,
Perception of public.
so it's not to convey the perception,
In today's
personal
society.
opinions and ideas
So-
represented. See, that
You know,
makes
well, you
sense.
can't-
So,
Be responsible how somebody perceives you if you're. just-
Number 9
okay,
is
so
to-
I'm gonna ask you guys, because everybody's doing
Okay.
their own thing here. I'm gonna ask you to send me your proposed updates for any or all of these. It doesn't matter how many, but if there's 3 of them, if you want to do all of them, send me your updates. What I will do then, or Jennifer, one of us will do, is take those individually, we'll plunk them in to whatever bullet point they apply for. So if there's 2 or 3 suggestions, 2 or 3 different suggestions, for instance, for bullet point number 3 on the front page, you'll see all of them together. And we'll talk about those and, can wordsmith them if we need to. But send that information to me if you can, by sometime next week. We won't put it in the board book, but I can bring it as an update to
Okay.
the October board meeting. We'll put it as a discussion item. And if there's too much stuff to discuss, we can talk about it at the work session. We don't necessarily have to take time. But
Okay.
that way, at least you can see all of the potential
And if
changes.
it's done like this, where you put the new verbiage in red and strike the old stuff.
Yeah, I'll make sure that however it comes, because it'll come from you guys in a different format, but we'll make sure, I'm not gonna strike through what's here, but what I will do is
Suggested.
put your suggested changes below each of those.
Well,
bullet
some of us
points.
might be like, that's dumb.
yeah, can you send this to us in a PDF so that we can do an editing like on
Do you
this
want it in
document?
PDF or in Word?
Or either way is Word. I can do it in either one. I have Adobe, so.
Yeah.
But Word's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll send it to you in Word. I
Okay.
think, yeah.
Thank
I'll
you.
make sure that
Word's
you've got
easier.
it.
And then before we adjourn, can I go, I wanted to make a point on the Butler community or the building in Andover again. Because you asked me why not pay the full amount now? So I'm trying to figure out how I could put this in words that make sense. If you buy a house and you owe $300,000 on your house right now today, your house payment would be $2,215 if you had a 6% loan at 20 years. So in no scenario would you say, I want to pay $560,000 to pay off my $300,000 house. That's a time value of money thing. So it's not appropriate to just take your monthly payment and say, this is what it would cost us over 20 years and say that that's a deal to pay that today. Because that's, you're totally paying all your interest and everything the bank would charge you up front. And that's if every donation came in. I don't know if there's a law that says these donations have to actually come in if someone changes their mind. But when you apply that to the 1.3 million, it gets astronomically worse.
There's not a law, but our commitments on our pledges are pretty high because we work with those donors pretty close.
Right. So even assuming they all come in, you see what I'm saying though about paying that upfront now. There's investment opportunity there. That's just, you would never pay your full mortgage upfront. Because you're paying.
Well, I think if
interest
you're
and
dealing with your personal assets, that may be one thing. College retains restricted funds that you all have talked about. How do we use these restricted funds that are for capital improvements and things? Those exist. This is an opportunity to take a look at a project and say, hey, we can use capital funds to capture that asset for the college.
Right,
Which-
but there's, and that, so it just becomes down to what's that asset worth? And that asset may very well be worth 1.5, 2 million. We don't know. 5.6 million is an unfair number to equate that to because that's just the cost. Cost is not.
I
equate value.
understand what you're saying. Yeah,
So that's my whole thing is just looking at every aspect of it. It may be the right decision,
right.
but I don't think you just take that monthly payment, put that on a screen and then compare that to the price and be like, oh, that makes sense. Well, not really. So that's it.
So we didn't get through the board evaluation. So I'll let Forrest know that,
Okay.
you know, because it's 6 o'clock, so I'll let Forrest know.
And Julie and I are getting copies of board evaluations by the next meeting. Right, Miss Julia?
Getting
Are we
copies of
gonna
it.
talk about the October meeting? Are we talking about the October work session?
October meeting.
What about the meeting evaluation?
That's what we're just saying. We were supposed to do that tonight as well,
Yep.
That.
The small one, the short one.
but we're missing two people, so we probably should wait.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed if we did work session every other month, do October skip, well, I guess. We'll have to see how November and December are gonna be Christmas and Thanksgiving, so we'll have to see how that works out.
Yeah, I think November work session is the Monday right after Thanksgiving. If I remember right.
I think it has.
That's
But if we don't need it, last month was really nice, just having,
Yeah,
Every other month.
I
would be
miss-
good.
I don't need
Thought
to see you all every 2
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Or have two
You don't
now
wanna
and then
see
take
me every 2
November and
weeks,
December
I
off.
know.
I'd be game for that too.
Christmas, we don't have one because it falls in the holiday.
It's just, everything after November 15th just becomes absolute
But we have
chaos.
a meeting in December, right?
Right.
And typically the
work session.
December meeting, we try to keep short because it usually falls on the same night as the
Oh, yeah.
Wichita, the Christmas symphony in Wichita and sometimes our headliners are part of that
Yes.
production. So we usually try and keep it short. And people have kids' school programs and stuff they need to do. So
Okay,
we try to limit the stuff on the December agenda typically.
pay up,
All
Julie.
right, all right,
You're gonna-
so.
Be back from Hawaii by then.
Oh, no.
How long are you
So let me ask,
You're
so you guys are
babysitting
gonna get,
boondoggle.
Julie and Mary Martha, you guys are gonna get evaluations from other institutions?
Yes.
Can you tell me who you're gonna call so I can give them a heads up? And so that they
Ghostbusters.
will
I'm
know?
doing the community colleges in Kansas. She's doing Missouri and Oklahoma.
You're gonna call all of
But I
them?
might decide to change because I think it's important that they don't know. I don't think they need a heads up.
What are you calling on?
Well, I think
Board
it's respectful
evaluations.
for those
Oh.
institutions.
No,
or-
it gives you. a
Well, the
chance to say,
ACT has a.
No.
Like a pre-made one. that we could-
Right.
I think it's a professional courtesy to the other institutions to let them know that we have a trustee that's gonna call and ask for a copy of the evaluation, so they know. You know, they know that you might be calling and
Perfect.
Because otherwise, why would they get the information?
I mean, I can send an email.
I
to the
can get
community-
information a lot faster if I
Thank
don't
you.
have to.
I'll send an email to the
be
community
bound.
college
Okay.
residents in Kansas and let them know that you might be contacting them. And,
Okay.
You know,
Perfect.
I mean, because then you can say our board's looking at, possibly changing an evaluation process and they want some examples.
Who gave us the buttons? I want to say thank you for the pins.
Tom did.
Thank you.
$25.
I'll
Pay
give it
up.
right back.
Donation to the foundation.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Kroll. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
everybody.
101 Dalmatians song, they call
So
it.
our